This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Toku Secrets is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hey guys, I'm Hunter Dino. I'm your pink Dino Fury Power Ranger and your red Cosmic Fury Power Ranger, and you're listening to Toku Secrets podcast.
Welcome to Toku Secrets. Join us as we journey into the marvelous world of Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, and many other tokusatsu. Get ready for the adventure of a lifetime. It's Morphin time! Link to the Morphin. I'm Nathan Desai, the dazzling adventurer, Spoken Silver.
I'm Patrick Allen, I'm Shinken Red.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant, Gokai Red.
And I'm Anthony Davis, also known as Curie Green. And we're Toku Secrets.
Hey, welcome everyone of the Toku Secrets podcast, presented by animesecrets.org. And today we are beginning our next, Sentai that we are binging and reviewing. Last time we did Mirai Sentai Time Ranger, and now we are going to be looking at another Sentai written by the great Yasuko Kobayashi. In fact, we're going to travel back about 2 years before Time Ranger came out to take a look at her very first Sentai that she was ever the head writer of, and that is Seijuu Sentai Gingaman. We are going to be taking a look at chapters 1 through 10. We got the whole crew on here to talk about it. So, let's, we're going to do the first 10 chapters. Before, as per usual, before we get started, we're going to, go over a little bit of some background information about Seijuu Sentai Gingaman. It aired from February 1998 to February 1999. It was adapted into Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Like I said, Yasuko Kobayashi is making her first outing as a head writer here. She was previously an assistant writer on the previous Sentai, Dingy Sentai Mega Ranger, and she also did. She was an assistant also on a bunch of Metal Hero series. Pretty much everything from Tokusatsu Robo Jan Person to B-Fighter Kabuto. So she would actually have been the head writer on both the two series that were adapted into Big Bad Beetleborgs, because she would have done Juko B-Fighter, which was adapted into the first season of Big Bad Beetleborgs, and then B-Fighter Kabuto, which was adapted into Beetleborgs Metallics. This is the last Sentai to date to feature man in the title, like Ginga Man. So we had other ones like Bioman, Five Man, Jet Man, blah, blah, blah. This is the last one to date to have that. This is the first Sentai to use alternative names for its episodes. These episodes are called chapters. You might remember, in Ginga Man, in Geki Ranger, we had the episodes called Lessons. They were called Case Files and Time Ranger. And so on and so forth. This is the first time that they did that. A couple of notable things about the name. This might be interesting for you guys. So it was always supposed to be called Seijuu Sentai, but the original name was supposed to be Gao Ranger. But this was changed because Toei was afraid that they were going to be sued by another animation company because they were releasing an anime called Yusha O Gao Gaigar. So... but they did end up using Gao Ranger later, aka the Sentai that was adapted into Riz's favorite Power Ranger series, Power Rangers Wild Force.
The more we look back at Wild Force, it's not as bad as I gave it shit for. It's still pretty bad, but there's some parts that I'm starting to see that maybe they're not the worst thing in the world, but they're not the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I guess. They also wanted to...
You're laughing.
Yeah, of course he's laughing. They also wanted to call it a Bio Ranger, but they scrapped it because it sounded too similar to Bioman. This is the last Sentai to have an illustrated / animated eye catch before and after its commercial break. From now on, like, you know, the Sentais that do have eye catches, although I have noticed that I don't think King Oger and Boom Boomger are using them, so I guess they just don't use eye catches anymore. But when from every Sentai after this, and even a couple before it, they would also always feature eye catches showing like the Rangers actually doing things in live action. But here, it's just like this big like illustration of like the Gingaman with their mechs and all that. Here's a couple of fun facts about the cast before we jump in. The actor who played Ginga Red, Ryoma Kazuki Maehara, he actually, when they decided to dub Power Rangers Lost Galaxy in Japanese, he actually voiced Kai Chin, the Blue Galaxy Ranger. I'm not sure. That's kind of funny that he's dubbing over a different character, but whatever. In 2019, Koji Sueyoshi, he played Hayate Ginga Green. He actually moved to Mexico City with his wife, and they actually live in Mexico City today still. And they own a Japanese restaurant called Hayateya that's directly named after his Gingaman character. That's awesome. I don't know if I'll ever go to Mexico City, but if I do go to Mexico City, I have to make it a priority to go to that place. And finally, Teruaki Ogawa, he plays Hyuga, and I've actually met his actor. He played Sasuke Ninja Red in Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger.
And it was weird for me, too, because I saw Kaku Ranger before this, and I couldn't stop seeing him as Sasuke this whole time. I do have one other little note here. Captain Zihab's voice actor, I'm not even bothered pronouncing this. Haikatsu Shibata, I think is how you say it. The voice actor for Captain Zihab. He was also previously Daimao in Kaku Ranger. And
okay.
And in GT, he was Omega Shenron. So he's played two pretty major antagonists in Toei's, or three major antagonists in Toei's library.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Because I knew his voice sounded familiar to me, and yeah. It was...
So we got Kaku Ranger's Red Ranger and their main villain, basically.
And the main villain, yeah.
Can't complain about that. But yeah, Ogawa Teruaki, I met him at Power Morphicon in 2018. Anthony was there with me. He was an awesome guy to meet. Like I actually told him Hugo was. So most of his stuff was about Sasuke, but I actually told him in Japanese that Hugo was my favorite from the show, and he like started like, "Oh, good job!" Like he was clapping because I said in Japanese pretty good. So yeah, he was a really nice guy. Probably my favorite Sentai actor I've ever met. Although that I don't know, that might change in a couple of months when I meet Ryota Ozawa, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Anyway, so we are now going to jump into the Gingaman episode reviews. Now, before we get started, since Gingaman is one of those Sentai where the theme song is played before the episode, no cold open, let us briefly pause. What do we think about Gingaman's theme song, guys?
It is catchy, and I love it every time I hear it.
Yeah.
It grew on me, to be honest with y'all. The first couple times I heard it, I was like, this is pretty similar to other Sentai songs, but it got catchy, and I got into it more as I went along. Now, I will say, I don't care how much hate I get for this, but I cannot stand the closing song.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that either.
That closing song bugs the crap out of me.
That's why I skipped the credits.
I did too after the first time.
I mean, the only two closing songs that I even care to listen to, well, okay, I like Bokinger's okay, but the only two I really like to listen to on repeat are Go Kaijers and Kyoryuger's. Those are both pretty awesome.
Go Kaisers is good. The engine wrap that Go Wander uses is entertaining.
Yeah, that's okay. But as far as Gingaman's theme song goes, like this might actually be one of my top 10 favorites. Like I love how it begins with the slow build up with the drums, and then it goes like right into the guitar, and it just gives you like that yeah type of rush of energy. It's an awesome theme song.
See, I would like it a lot more. And the closest comparison I can make that you guys would understand for why I don't like it as much as people might is, you know how everyone got tired of hearing Go-Go Power Rangers season after season? I'm getting tired of hearing the Rangers like team name just over and over again said in the song. It's the same kind of concept to me, and it's a little tiresome at points.
Yeah, that's fair. Like with the ga 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 Gingaman, ga 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 ga
Yeah.
Gingaman, right?
Yeah, it gets a little repetitive, and that's why I'm like, okay, can we not?
Anthony, you want to give any comments on the theme song?
Oh, I like it so far. I heard the English dub version of it, and I thought, oh, this is kind of catchy too. I think I like the English dub more than like the regular Japanese version. That's just me though.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned the. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, it's very Englished though.
Yeah,
that's kind of adds to the charm of it.
And funnily enough, we're gonna hear I do remember this specifically when I was watching Gingaman originally. We are gonna hear the English dubbed version in at least one episode. I don't know what episode it is, but it's gonna be played over one episode. But yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, this wasn't that weird stretch because I think Mega Ranger through Time Ranger all got full English versions of their theme songs. Just I don't know why.
Yeah, Go-Go 5. I remember Go-Go 5 getting one.
Mega Rangers was played during the Mega Ranger Car Ranger movie intro. That I do know.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and also a fun fact about the Mega Ranger theme song, unrelated. The person who sings the Mega Ranger English theme song is the actress who plays Chisato, Mega Yellow.
Is that really her?
Interesting.
Dang. Yeah, that's really her.
She's got some pipes on her, man. She whizzed.
Yeah, totally.
she hit some high notes on that version. Okay,
but anyway, so we talked about the theme song. Now let's jump into actually talking about the episodes. So we're going to start off with Chapter 1, The Legendary Blade. Since this is the first episode, I am going to go into a little bit more detail here. So this is actually a two-part episode. Technically, we get introduced to all of our main characters. We open up, we're meeting a new character named Haruhiko, and he has his son named Yuta. They're in the woods because Haruhiko is an aspiring children's book writer who wants to prove the existence of flying acorn people because he thought he saw them as a kid. And he also wants to prove the existence of a legendary forest that is hidden. And they are actually being watched by one of these actual acorn people. His name is Boku. And he says they're never going to find the hidden forest because there's actually a hidden barrier to it. And it's here in the forest that we are seeing the preparations for a ceremony being overseen by a wise shaman named Ogi, in which the 5 Seijuu Star Beast swords, these are the equivalent of the Quasar sabers in Lost Galaxy, they will be handed down to the 133rd new generation of the warriors of the Ginga Forest. And it's here that we meet those 5 new warriors. We have the wise and powerful Hyuga. Oh, I forgot to mention. So everyone in this forest has something known as Earth Power, which basically gives them power over different classical elements. And the 5 warriors are the ones who are chosen with the strongest Earth Power. So we have Hyuga, who wields power over fire. We have the young and bubbly tomboy Saya. She has nature power, like power over flowers. We have a serious and no-nonsense Hayate, wind power. A strong and yet clumsy and goofy Goki, who wields water power, and young, carefree, and somewhat lazy Hikaru, who wields lightning power. And we also meet Hyuga's younger brother, Ryoma. He wasn't chosen, but he's happy for his older brother. But while the five warriors are going to attend the ceremony, Ryoma, while trying to fetch food, he actually runs into Yuta when he passes through one of the barriers and tells them about the legend of the forest, but Yuta just laughs. Shortly after the ceremony, the Gingaman, after they're given their swords, they're told to go up to a mountain to obtain their Ginga braces. These are the equivalent of the transmorphers in Lost Galaxy. And it's revealed in a kind of an exposition that 3,000 years ago, the world was attacked by a gang of space pirates known as the Balban. They were defeated by the original Gingaman and sealed away. Unfortunately, an earthquake erupts, and that causes the seal on the Balban to become undone, and it releases their giant castle perched upon a giant monster, and it is here that we meet our villains. We'll do the roll call. We have the Captain Zahab. This is the equivalent of Captain Mutiny from Lost Galaxy. You might know him for the main villain of the Lost Galaxy saga. He was only in Lost Galaxy for like 5 or 6 episodes. I can't remember. But we have Shalinda, Zahab's humanoid right-hand woman. Shalinda, she doesn't really have a true counterpart. I mean, I guess technically she fills the role of Trakina since they're both face characters, but she's not. But Trakina doesn't use her suit like how Vipra and whatever that character's name was in Go-Go 5, but still. Then we have Bucrates. He's this barrel-like advisor to Zahab, and he was used for a Kegler in Lost Galaxy. And then we have our 4 generals of... so the Balban has 4 monster armies, and we have their 4 generals. So we have Sambash. He's this pistol-wielding biker. His suit was used for Villamax. We have Budo, a manta ray-like samurai warrior, Trecheron. Iles... she's actually Bucrates' niece, and she's a sorcerer-like leader of an army. She was used for Hexuba, and Batobas, the heavily armored warrior. He was used, I believe his name was Barbarax in Lost Galaxy. I can't remember. I don't remember much with the Lost Galaxy saga villains, but
yeah, you got it right.
Okay, cool. The Balban generals run wild, and they start unleashing their army of Yartots. These were called so the Yartots are called Swabbies in Lost Galaxy. The Stingwingers are not here in Lost Galaxy. In Gingaman, the Swabbies are the main foot soldiers. They start rampaging everywhere. The Gingaman mount their armored horses, and they race to the mountain to get their Ginga braces, and they run into Zahab and Bucrates. They engage in a battle. Ryoma intervenes, but he gets overpowered due to his weaker firepower. And this is kind of where the similarities with the Lost Galaxy first episode kind of start to align, because there's so the earthquake causes a crack in the ground, and Hyuga falls in it, and he gives Ryoma his sword before falling in, voicing confidence in Ryoma, and he urges him to be confident in himself, and then the ground closes with Hyuga falling inside. And that's when Ryoma unleashes his newfound powerful firepower, and he vows he'll defeat the Balban, and it's here that the Ginga braces appear on their wrists, and they transform into the Gingaman. We have Ginga Red, Ryoma, Ginga Green, Hayate, Ginga Blue, Goki, Ginga Yellow, Hikaru, and Ginga Pink, Saya, together, Seijuu Sentai Gingaman. And now that they've all transformed, let us briefly pause to talk about what we think about the Gingaman suits, guys. Who wants to go first?
Over the years, they've grown on me. When I was a kid watching Lost Galaxy, I always thought they were pretty stupid looking, but I don't know. There's just something about them, because like a very obvious joke I can make is, it's a Charlie Brown T-shirt design on their chest, but
yeah.
But like I watched Gingaman a few years ago, and I'm watching it again now, and I'm like, man, they just look so good when they move that I can't hate them.
Yeah. You know, they got that zigzag pattern on their civilian suits too.
Yeah.
That was that.
I also noticed that on the bracer that the design is there too. I never noticed that before. The henshin
Oh,
device.
by the way,
Yeah.
I love how like they never showed doing that in Lost Galaxy, but I love how part of their henshin is that they have to switch that dial to like whatever the
to the color, yeah.
square is on there. Because I always wondered because I had the Transmorpher toy as a kid, but you never saw him using it in Lost Galaxy. I always thought like, what's the point of those colored squares on the Transmorpher? But in Gingaman, there's actually a reason for that.
Yeah, I think what it was because I think before they got the Transmorphers, their Quasar Sabers were technically their morphers first before their morphers showed up. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I kind of support that too, since they used their Quasar Sabers to morph in the first episode.
Yeah.
But me personally, I mean, maybe I hate these suits a little less, but I'm still not a huge fan of them. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the helmets do a great job at like showcasing what animals they are. Like, I remember I was once having a conversation with a friend where we were talking about the helmets, and somebody said, "Oh, well, I like the Yellow Ranger's helmet because I can definitely tell that his animal is an eagle." And I'm like, "Buddy, his Zord is a wolf." So, like, that's how bad it is to like mistake the animal thing. Riz, what do you think?
Not an eagle.
Yeah, I know. Riz, what do you think of these suits?
I mean, they're not like my favorite suits, but I've never had an issue with them. I know at one point when Patrick and I talked, he didn't like the suits at all. And I know other people like Nathan Martzan and Michael Hamilton from the Horror Trip detest the suits because of the chevrons on it and it kind of looks like a Charlie Brown thing. But I never actually hated the suits. I just didn't really care either way.
Yeah.
But like Patrick said, I mean, they move well, which, I mean, they're not terrible to look at, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I do like how I always like this even as a kid. I like how like their standard sidearm, like they do have a holster on their side for their standard sidearm, but it's not a blaster, and they actually fold up like their swords are compact. I always loved that as a kid. That's really awesome.
That was pretty cool.
But yeah, maybe it's just because again, I can't believe I know I keep saying this every time we talk about suits in a Sentai video, but maybe it's just because again I survived 53 episodes of Battle Fever J, but it's starting to make me appreciate some other suits. So again,
you know, I don't even hate the Boom Boomster suits anymore. Well, I still don't like the helmets that much, but I'm starting to like it's starting to grow on me now.
Yeah, but again, I agree. Nothing's as bad as the Battle Fever J outfits, man.
No, I saw like there was somebody who posted like it was on. I think it was on some group I'm in on Facebook or whatever. Posted this really nice looking like picture of the Battle Fever J characters, and it looked like an anime. And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty interesting because they didn't have the metal faces on it. It was like the actual faces underneath them.
Yeah. Huh. But anyway,
if I can find it, I'll show y'all.
Yeah, I saw it. It looked pretty cool.
Okay.
But yeah, to kind of wrap up talking about the episode, the 5 Gingaman, they engage the Balban, they scare off the generals, force them to retreat, and then they vow that they'll defeat the Balban and avenge Hyuga while Yuta is watching. So that wraps up chapter 1. What do we think of chapter 1, gentlemen?
Can I start first?
Go ahead. Totally.
Dude, the fact that that with Hyuga's sacrifice and Ryoma just going like ham and just basically fighting all the generals and Captain Zahab at once by himself and actually one-shotting them all, that was actually pretty badass. Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah. I will say this, bouncing off of that, is that I think Ryoma's reaction is better than Leo's. In that
Thank you.
Leo so annoyed. But Ryoma, you could see him like he was ready to rip some heads off.
And I mean,
it was more or less like they were trying to have him hold back for some reason. Like, your brother literally just died in front of you, and all you can do is silently just grit your teeth and just get mad silently. Like, no, I'd be like,
no, and like, the thing about it, we'll get to this when we get to it, but Ryoma's grief doesn't end at episode 1.
No.
It's a constant theme through at least the first 10 episodes. And I think that's beautiful. Well, it's powerful.
Yeah.
I have to say this, and I know y'all will be like laughing your asses off if I say this. Damon had a better reaction to Leo than when Mike and Phil. He didn't even know the guy.
He did.
Mike!
You know, there's this one group, I can't remember who it was, like about 10 years ago, where they did like these one panel comics for each season. And the one for Lost Galaxy was just Mike falling into the pit, and it was all like, Mike! Like they're all screaming for him, and it cut to Damien. It's like, I don't know who you are, but Mike!
But I think the other reason why I feel like Hyuga's like death supposedly is much more powerful here is that there's something that like first of all, we saw him in Ryoma training, and we always showed that like Ryoma doesn't really have that much self-confidence, and Hyuga's trying to be that encouraging older brother. Like, there's something built up to that. Like, they've all been their whole lives, they've been training to potentially be Gingaman, and Ryoma doesn't think he can do it. And then here's Hyuga saying, no, bro, I believe in you. You can do this. Come on. You got this, bro. While with Lost Galaxy, Mike spent half the time before he fell into the crevice, like telling Leo off, like, dude, you're not supposed to be here on Terra Venture. What are you doing, man? Like, I told you not to follow us. What are you, an idiot or something like that? And then all of a sudden he's all like, no, you can do this. You can be a ranger. I've always been so proud of you. Like, what? Like, it's so...
And we didn't even know they were brothers till like halfway through this, like literally toward the end of the episode. And we're just like, I wish they would establish that. Like,
it just feels much more powerful because you know that like this thing that Hyuga is giving Ryoma is something that they've been training for their whole lives, as opposed to in Lost Galaxy where they don't even know what these sabers are. Mike just pulled one out of the...
They don't know what these sabers are, what they do.
And it also helps play
it's sort of like they just kind of just...
You can talk. You can talk, Anthony.
No, what I was going to say was that, like, they don't even know what they can do, the swords. They don't know, like, where they're at. They're just here on another planet out of nowhere. Like, they had to literally fumble around just to get to this destination, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it also, I think it helps with Ryoma's character, too, because he was trying so hard to take the mantle of Ginga Red, but he basically accepted that he wasn't good enough. And he was happy for his brother, like genuinely happy for him. And then just to see everything get taken away from him like that, like Lost Galaxy, I think it kind of hurt itself just stripping this moment straight from Gingaman, because it just didn't have the build-up or the characters or the backstory to make it work effectively like it does here.
Yep. And
I think
go ahead, Riz.
Yeah, I want to give my initial thoughts before we get too far into the analysis here. I think part of what happened here is Lost Galaxy tried really hard to do too many things at one time. They tried to adapt Gingaman, but they were also trying to make Space Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they pulled too many elements in, but didn't really stick the landing on any of it. Like, they did a better job at trying to make Space Part 2 than they did of adapting Gingaman. Like, They got
Honestly,
the general concept of
Mhm.
Gingaman, but they didn't really get the heart of it. And that's really telling here to me.
Mhm.
But overall thoughts of the episode, this might be controversial, but this might be the best Sentai episode 1 I've ever seen.
It's up
Yeah.
there. It's
It had a real powerful finish.
Mhm.
I mean,
Like,
it had a real powerful
we
beginning.
have really deep characterization for our Red and his brother. We get some decent characterization of other characters. Like, for example, I finished episode 1 and I texted Nate and said, dude, Saya
Yep.
must be protected at all costs. And that's after episode 1.
Oh, big facts.
Did not even need to see the rest of the 10-episode batch to be like, okay, Saya gotta be protected at all costs. Forget Kotaha. Kotaha is secondary to Saya. Saya is number 1 now.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Like-
Well, I wouldn't say screw Kotaha, but like,
okay, did I say the word screw? I didn't say the word
Yes.
screw. I just
Yeah,
said,
don't say that, buddy. Come on.
I didn't say screw Kotaha. I just said Kotaha is my second or my third priority now.
Yeah.
Like, Saya just has that bubbly energy that you can't hate.
And I
that's
I
true.
love how they
That's true.
characterize Goki in this episode, where he's practicing how to
Yeah.
receive his sword, and he's trying like, no, don't you bump your head, don't you bump your head. Damn it, I just bumped my head. So
Yeah. No, like, we get so much good characterization in episode 1. Like,
Mhm.
we don't get that. And part of why we have this great characterization is because we don't even see a mech.
yep.
Oh,
Nobody says,
I'm.
magic monster, make my wand grow.
Uh-huh.
No. Magic wand, make my monster grow.
Oh, wait until we get there. I
know.
have.
I have thought. I have a lot of thoughts.
And I think the characterization
Patrick,
for
you're not
Haya-
going to fight about this.
No, we're not
We're
going
gonna
to fight
fight.
about this.
No.
Are
We're
we?
not going to fight for who's going to say it first.
Oh, okay. And
We're going to have to fight for this because I know your thoughts, because I know you. I've known you for 10 years.
I know.
And I know where you're going with it, and I'm going the same way you're going.
Yeah.
So we're gonna like, I don't know, arm wrestle or rock paper scissors or something, because damn it.
But yeah, I want to give this. I don't want to give it 10 so early, but I'm still going to give it a 9.
I'm going with 9.5.
I'm giving it a 9.5 because I'm saving my 10 for an episode a little bit down the road here in this podcast.
Gee,
Yeah.
I wonder what episode that could be, Patrick.
I'm using it. I'm using that episode to establish a point that I've been making for the last year and a half.
What about
Hey.
you, Anthony?
I'm giving it a 9.5 too.
I'll say 9.5 then. What the heck?
Peer pressure.
All right. Now let's continue with the two-parter, Chapter 2, The Star Beast Return. So at the beginning of the episode, we actually established more of the motivation for the Balban, because you might remember in Lost Galaxy there was a giant dinosaur-like creature called Titanosaur. Well, here that's actually kind of a big deal. So the monster of their ship, it's called the Great Titanics. Apparently the Great Titanics is still sealed away. And we actually find out that what the Balban has been doing is that they go to planets, they raid them, and they take all the treasures. And then the Great Titanics turn the planets into jewels, and then they no. It eats the planet and then turns them into jewels. Kind of a real messed up thing to do. But so the Balban need to revive Titanics in order to complete their raid of Earth. So that's kind of how. So that's going to be their motivation for the remainder of the series, coming up with ways to revive the Great Titanics. Of course, the four generals argue who will do the task, and and Zahab uses this lottery. He throws 4 cards, and whoever gets the Joker wins. They will be in charge of reviving the Great Titanics, and Sambash wins. And one quick thing that I want to say about this, scene. Well, actually, no. I'll bring that up when we get to the villain analysis. So no need. But Sambash so Sambash sends his scorpion-like monster, Cole Shizer, to collect energy for Great Titanics in a box. While they're attacking, the Gingamen are alerted to be attacked, and Shalinda attacks the Ginga forest. She wants to collect its energy to revive Great Titanics, and she breaks the barrier, but and it looks like she's going to drain all the energy, so Ogi forces the Gingaman to leave, and he uses a spell to turn the whole Ginga forest into stone, kind of like how Furio turned the Miranoi planet into stone, except this time there's actually a little bit more emotion behind it, and I'll talk about that when we talk about the episode. But
Yeah, me too.
Shalinda's forced to retreat, and the forest is turned to stone, and only Boku escapes. The Gingaman, they arrive, they fight off the Balban. Ryuma overpowers Cole Shizer, and then he drinks a flask of a Balban extract that enlarges him. And it's here that the 5 Star Beast, Seijuu, these are 5 giant creatures that fought with the original Gingaman 3,000 years ago. They arrive. We have the red Ginga Leon, green Gingalkun, blue Gingrilla, yellow Gingaverick, and pink Gingat. And they all arrive. Ryuma mounts Ginga Leon and defeats Kolshizer with his amplified earth power. And the episode ends with the Gingaman. They mourn over losing their forest, but they vow that they will defeat the Balban and will return the forest to normal. And Boku arrives and gives them Ogi's necklace. All right, so what do we think about Chapter 2, guys?
So, first, they lose their leader, and that's a huge detriment to their psyche and their spirits. I mean, Ryuma loses a brother, the rest of them lose a leader.
Yep.
And they're off at a really big disadvantage. Second, they lose their forest and their people. I mean,
They're home, basically.
like, they lose home. I mean, they're really going for the jugular here. I mean, holy crap. So the emotions are high. I mean, things are really, really nuts. And
I want to say something real quick. Michiko Yokote, head writer of Go Sager, I got something to tell you. You know how in the first episode of Go Sager, you cut off access for them from the Gosei world in the first episode without showing us what their lives were like on the Gosei world and basically giving us no emotion behind the moment. You're going to ask me, how would you have done it? This is how you do something like that.
I know. And I was about to say that. I'm so glad that they didn't do what Lost Galaxy did and kind of had this happen immediately. They gave us like an episode and a half to see what life was like inside of the Ginga Forest so we could feel how heavy this moment was. And
yeah.
And the fact that it was also of their own doing instead of it being by some monster, like doing it out of like a fit of desperation. It was them trying to save their own livelihood by sacrificing themselves. Like, it's just so much better, man. So much better.
And I want to do like a small little rant here, for Lost Galaxy. As much as I like that show, and I don't get me wrong, I do love their characters and I love the story and all that. There are a few hiccups with that show that I will talk about here briefly real quick. Furio, you have the power to turn pretty much anything you want into stone by slamming your sword into the ground. If you have this ability, why didn't you use it before after you fought the Rangers?
That's fair.
Because
but okay. This reminds me of a point that I wanted to talk about in the episode 1 recap that I forgot about because I was too busy gushing over how good it was. My only complaint, and probably the reason it doesn't get a 10, is it felt too easy for them to defeat the entire big bad army in one go. Like, literally the Zendrils. they were able to push him back at the first go without really knowing how to use the powers within seconds of being Gingaman. I mean, that shouldn't have happened.
Maybe they were holding back? I don't know.
Well, I think even, I mean, okay, so if the army was not holding back, this kind of poses a problem for the threat of these villains, right? Because on one hand, a very new team could take them out pretty quick.
Yeah.
But then they come back and they're expecting to be like, haha, we're back. Let's fight again. And here, you're only going to fight one of us this time. Like, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to lose. You eliminated your threat factor by being defeated in the first episode a little bit. Which is why I don't like the villains of the season right now.
But I feel like this episode kind of offsets that a little bit because now they're trying to revive like a big giant dinosaur like creature, and we don't know if the Gingaman are going to be able to easily defeat that. Probably not. So, like, I think the threat factor is up just a little bit, but I get what you're saying, and I'm not.
Well, okay, yeah, it's going to be up a little bit when they revive him, if they revive him, because I mean, spoilers. 10 episodes in, they haven't revived him yet.
Yeah, duh.
So, I mean, it hurts a little bit. Not a lot. It's not enough to make me hate it. It's just a nitpick I found.
One thing I want to say about like them wanting to return home, and I'm probably okay. I was telling Riz this in a text message, and I haven't mentioned this to Anthony or Patrick, but honestly, like, and you might find me saying this a bit more down the line in this podcast. This honestly kind of feels like what Zyuranger should have been. Like, where, like,
you know what? I was thinking the exact same thing, but I didn't want to say it out loud.
Thinking it, and I'm going to go one step further to no one's surprise. But this is what Geki Ranger should have been doing as well in certain aspects.
Yeah.
I don't know if that comparison applies as well to Geki Ranger as it does to Zyuranger.
Can you explain
so I
what you mean?
Some Nathan in text, and he agreed with me after.
Yeah,
So I'm not talking about like the Zyuranger Child of the Day plot or the mysticism. I'm talking more about like, this is how you do animal theme correctly. This is how you have a secret order that no one knows about with mystical mandate to stop the baddies from generations past.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is something we see in Geki Ranger, and it's something that Shinkanzer does correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the animal theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I agreed with you more so with the connection to Zyuranger because there's a lot of one-to-one connections with...
Yeah, there is, and I agree with that.
With them, I guess, being taken away from their home, and they're kind of living in an outside world. Their giant mechs are living creatures, yada, yada, yada. But it actually addresses a lot of the issues I had with Zyuranger. Like, you know how one of my biggest complaints with Zyuranger was they didn't have any like cultural whiplash when they showed up in the present time? Well, you know how the Gingaman addressed that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they could leave the Ginga Forest at any time, so they actually know a lot of what goes on in the outside world. It was just a throwaway line in, I think it's the next episode or something. And that's all it takes. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
But I mean, also, you also see Ryoma interacting with
Yuta.
Yeah. You see him interacting with Yuta, and unlike Zyuranger, the kid actually serves a very important plot point for the team.
Yep.
Yes.
And he's also not...
He's not annoying either, thankfully.
Yeah, I was about to say what Anthony just said.
What did Anthony say?
Yeah.
He's not really an annoying... Like, Yuta... Okay, he's not, like, a top 10 character ever, but he's not an annoying character. Like, we can tolerate Yuta.
No, he's not annoying at all. He's a good character. He does the job well.
Yeah. other than that, I just want to say that the opening fight, I love this too. How they bring in the Star Beasts, and we'll talk about the main mech debut thing. I'll let Riz and Patrick fight over who's going to say that when we get to that episode. But I love how I love Sentais that take their time with introducing the main mech and aren't afraid to have the mechs destroy monsters by themselves individually. Sometimes I love how Ginga Leon takes down the Kolsch is whatever he was called Radster in Lost Galaxy, whatever he's called here.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that we could see a very clear, here's how we use our mech Zord things without needing to combine them.
Yep. What do we want to give Chapter 2 out of 10, guys?
I'm going to go to 9.
I'll give
9.
Yeah, I'll give it a 9 too. But before I move on to this episode 3, did you know that by drinking the Balaban extract, Balaban monsters will become giants? But this was
no,
what
Patrick, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. It's not like that.
What? Oh my god! I don't believe
I feel like
it.
that one face from that one video where it's just like.
No, Patrick, I didn't know that because it's not like the narrator says that in every single episode.
That was actually one of the things
I know.
I legitimately forgot about this before we started watching this season. We'll be sitting here at episode 40, and they'll still be saying that when the monster grows. And I'm like, I get it.
And when of course they say it every time they do their henshin and do their roll call, it'd be like
a term given to mighty warriors. Like, shut up! I know.
It's like, all right, I get it.
Nobody cares.
It's like Plankton from freaking SpongeBob.
Oh, but I'll give it this. It's still not as annoying as some of the repetitive narrations in Deca Ranger. Oh my god,
Oh my god, I hate those so much.
Episode, every episode,
I know that one.
Jackie Gello tries to use her powers, and it's like, Jasmine is an Esper and she can do this. Next episode, Jasmine is an Esper and she can do this, and it's like, okay, we get it. Just shut up.
Oh, and don't be started on Sen-chan. This is Sen-chan's thinking pose. He does a kickstand where he hits his hands on his hands on the ground. And
the more I hear about Deca Ranger, the more I kind of don't want to watch it.
Yeah, I prefer SPD.
It's literally just a scenario like cops versus robbers, basically.
Honestly, with how popular it is in Japan, I feel half tempted to call it the most overrated Sentai because both American and Japanese on it. Because Die Ranger is overrated, but I hear that people in Japan don't care as much for it as people here in the U.S. But Deca Ranger is loved in both the U.S. and Japan. That's why I'm half tempted to call that the most overrated Sentai ever.
Honestly, it doesn't help that its Power Rangers counterpart is a top 3 season in Power Rangers.
Exactly. The only thing I will say it does better than Power Rangers SPD is their 6th Ranger. Yeah. That's it.
Well, you can't do much worse than Omega Ranger. Let's be real here.
Right. Because they actually gave him a character, and he's actually cool. Yeah. And he has to go through the character development.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to Chapter 3.
Stupid ball of light.
Yeah, that sucks, Anthony. All right, Chapter 3, The Earth's Wisdom. This is kind of where we're getting the status quo mostly set up. Sam Bash is officially appointed as the field commander of reviving Titanics. So basically, Badobass, Iris, and Budo aren't going to be around for the next couple of episodes. So this is basically the beginning of his arc as general. The Gingaman are given a new home. Haruhiko and Yuta, they both witnessed the Gingaman in the previous episode. They arranged for them to work as live-in helpers at a horse riding club called the Silver Star Equestrian Club. And at the end of the episode, they actually they plant a seed that came out of Ogi's necklace, and that seed sprouts like a massive tree that the Gingaman can enter, and that serves as their base. And inside the tree is I guess the soul of the tree, and this is where we get our mentor. His name is Wisdom Tree Moke. He's a tree created by Ogi, who was entrusted with wisdom and knowledge in case of an emergency. So Moke is like our Zordon-esque figure, I guess you could say, because, I mean, Last Galaxy didn't really have a mentor. Only other thing to note is that the flea-like monster of the day of this episode, Riguro, he is the only monster of Sam Bash's gang to not be adapted into an episode of Lost Galaxy. Footage of this episode was used in a Lost Galaxy Saga episode, but it was just the footage of them fighting the Yartots. So what do we think of Chapter 3, guys? Anyone want to go first? Because I just spoke for a little bit.
I mean, it's fine. It like you said, it's basically just establishing what the episode-to-episode status quo is going to be. And I think it does that well.
There's not a lot to really talk about here. It's just establishing the world and, like you said, status quo. So, I mean,
I like the moments that Goki has feeling a little homesick. It gives him a little bit of character.
Yeah. How he's the big softy. He's the first one that needs to go back, and he wants to give himself some sort of closure on everything, which I understand immensely.
And that's why
I like Moke.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I like Moke. I like Moke as a character.
But yeah, the Goki stuff, honestly, I mean, spoiler alert to people in this podcast, Goki is my favorite in this season, but the Goki stuff,
I don't blame you.
The Goki stuff really makes me really like this episode. So I'm not going to give it a 9, but I'll give it an 8. It's fine. I mean, it's nothing bad about it.
I don't want to say that this is as good as Domon's equivalent in Time Ranger, where he had that huge emotional mental breakdown, which made me really start loving him as a character. But it's a lot more, but it still has the same effect. So yeah, I would say maybe an 8 or something for this one. Safe episode with some good stuff in it.
Yeah, I'll go to 8 as well.
Cool. All right, we'll move on to Chapter 4, The Earth's Heart. This is a filler episode revolving around Hayate and Hikaru. Mostly just basically Hikaru likes to just go around flagrantly using his earth power to entertain people at a magic show, and Hayate is all like, "Hey Hikaru, you can't be doing that," and then they basically clash for the rest of the episode. Only thing to note is that the monster of the day of this episode, Dreadredder, he did appear in Lost Galaxy, but they only use there's an episode called the Chameleac Warrior, where a monster is analyzing past battles that the Rangers have had so that he can memorize their tactics, and they use the footage of Hikaru battling this monster one-on-one as the footage that he's using to analyze Maya. So he never appeared in an actual episode of his own in Lost Galaxy. He's apparently been given the name Trencher. Apparently this is because the suit for the monster was apparently modified into another monster of the day in a future episode, which we are going to be covering in this batch, and I'll point out which monster suit that was developed and that was modified from. But yeah, that's all the information on this episode. What do we think of Chapter 4, guys?
I want to go first here because I really loved the relationship between Hayate and Hikaru. And Hayate's hesitates and needs power, and Hikaru being like, what's the big deal? Because from the get-go, Hikaru has been very kind of aloof and kind of like, we're not really that important. We're just some people that hold the power that we're never going to use. Surprise, you get to use it now because they're back. But I just thought the entire interaction was amazing, and it really goes a long way to give us something meaningful, not only about the character and how they are as a person, but also how do they fit together as a team, which again is something we don't really see with the next thing that this writer does with Time Ranger. I mean, yeah, we got Domon and his angst, but nobody really connected with Domon as much as we're going to connect here with Hayate and Hikaru, in my opinion.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
it does a good job of establishing how Hikaru is more of like the young rebellious-ish teenager, because he is the youngest of the five, I believe,
Yeah.
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 and
Yeah.
Hayate is the responsible one who wants him to understand that there's more to it than just, oh, you can shoot electricity out of your fingers. And it really sets the groundwork for their dynamic for the team going forward. And
Yeah.
yeah, they do it in a very natural way, because this is the first time that they've been forced to live outside of the forest. So how do they handle this? Well, Hikaru wants to go exploring and show off a little bit, and Hayate's like, you can't do that.
And
Yeah.
We still have to be organized. We still have to be, kind of held back and reserved and everything, and be on guard for whatever comes next. And
yeah. And part of what I like about Hikaru as a character is the fun parallels between him and Chiaki from Shinkenzer.
Yeah.
Like, they're both very similar character-wise, and I love it.
Yeah.
honestly,
Go
in
ahead, Patrick.
hindsight, there is a lot. In hindsight, when I've started watching this again, there is a lot of writing similarities between the two teams.
Yeah, I mean,
In
Saya
some regards.
and Kotaha, Hayate
Mhm.
and Ryunosuke.
Yep.
I'll even say Ryoma and Takaru for different reasons. Like
I
they're
want to hear that one.
I'll explain when we get to the character thing. But I think there's some similarities, but they're written in completely opposite ways from one another.
Yeah, they're definitely opposite characters in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm honestly starting to like Hikaru a bit more, because I remember, like, before we were going to this podcast, like, I kept saying I really do not like Ginga Yellow, and part of me feels tempted to just hate him just for the sake of kayfabe, like how Anthony likes to hate on this one character, Chris likes to hate on this one character. So I just want to go into this podcast and be like, man, I hate Hikaru. He's the worst Yellow Ranger ever. No, I can't.
Yeah.
I like how every time Nathan tells me he doesn't like a certain character, Nathan comes into the Sentai at a second go around like, oh, I actually like this character a lot.
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah,
at
that's
you,
why
Sion.
I always thought your hatred for Hikaru was a little bit, over exaggerated.
I
Because,
guess
like,
I was kind
I
of a
will
little
agree
annoyed.
I will agree he is probably my least favorite member of this cast, but he's not a
Yeah.
terrible character.
Oh, yeah. I would, but yeah, I'm starting, honestly, when I compare him more to Chiaki, because the funny thing is I always liked Chiaki, even when I watched Shinkenger
Yeah.
back when I was like 14, but yeah, kind of seeing those similarities
Yeah.
now, especially after having recently rewatched Shinkenger for our podcast, I'm starting to realize
Mhm.
maybe I was a little too harsh on this guy. Like,
You were.
You know what? I'm the same way, because I remember my first watch through of Gingaman, I did not like Hikaru.
Yeah.
Maybe because he was too mouthy for my taste. I was just like, ugh, like, you talking too much mess. Like, go away. But
Funny
I'm
how it's funny how you guys all had that reaction the first time seeing him. I'm like, I like this guy. I love this guy. He's awesome. I never had that frustration with him like y'all did.
Well, I mean, I never hated him. I just thought compared to the others, he just felt the most
yeah.
unlikable, I guess, is the way I want to word
Yeah.
that.
I actually liked him a lot more than the others at this point. Like at
Hmm.
this point
Really?
at this point in my watch,
Yeah.
he was my number 2 favorite character.
Huh. Well, perspective is
Like-
everything, as they say.
That like, but
I still find him annoying, but I don't hate
Yeah,
him.
I
the
think
ranking
he-
will change by the end, mind you. But
Oh, and they
sort of
will.
at this point in my watch,
Mhm.
when I
That's
started
what-
to watch, this is where I was.
I still
Fair
think
enough.
he's
Fair enough.
absolutely. I honestly think he's hilarious right now. I love this part in the final scene where he's been injured in the fight and Hayate is carrying him on his back, and Hikaru is all like, "I'm sorry, I was so reckless and a jerk, Hayate," and then Hayate is all like, "Nah, it's okay." And then Hikaru was all like, "Okay, now you can apologize to me." And then Hayate is like, "What?" And then he kicks him off his back.
He drops him.
Get off my. He's like, no. He literally said, get off my back, please.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, this team feels more like a brotherhood. Like what Riz was saying, the dynamic and everything that Time Ranger was missing. This group feels like a brotherhood, because they've grown up training together, and you can see that they have a history with each other.
And I mean, that's the thing, because you guys were really trying to write home and say, at the end of Time Ranger that they were a close knit team. Yeah, I mean they were close enough, but despite training together, despite all their history before episode 1, they didn't really get along that well in the beginning. Like they weren't really
Well,
like that well
okay, I don't
connected.
think they
Well,
had been
I think
training
the
'cause-
difference is. Well, I think the difference is that the Gingaman had been there since childhood. The Time Rangers thing, that was part of the journey, was them getting to
And-
that point.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, but they were. I mean, remember in the first episode of Time Ranger, like Shion sees Domon, and he's like, "Oh, you're Domon, that famous fighter. Can I have your autograph?" So I get the implication that like they were still going through boot camp, and maybe they saw each other here and there in the station, but they didn't. They hadn't been training together as much as these Gingaman had.
And that's fair. But there's definitely less opportunity for the five of them in the beginning. Well, okay, the 4 of them from the Time Force to really have a commonality, which is kind of weird because they all come from the future. But they didn't really get along. They didn't really bond over a lot in the beginning.
Yeah, and it plays to the advantage. Yeah, it plays to the advantage that Gingaman takes its opening arc, and I mean opening arc. I mean the first 7 episodes a lot more slow than Time Ranger did.
Oh my god, it's so great. We have
and
so much to talk about.
Exactly.
Because like we all know that if like this Sentai was like written by like at a different time where they tend to try to rush everything in the first episode, they would have had the forest like turned to stone like within like 5 minutes of the first episode.
Yeah. Or they would have had the mechs come out in like 15 minutes.
Yeah. But
and then we'd get like the Gingan IO and like 5 minutes after.
What do we think of episode 4? What do we want to give that out of 10?
I'm gonna go with a 9 for this because I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
same here.
Too. Anthony?
Yeah, I'll give it a 9 too.
Sweet. All right, let's move on to chapter 5, the Sure Kill Fangs. This is a Ryoma-centric filler episode. Ryoma gets captured by the latest monster while, constantly reeling from like advice that what Hyuga gave to him when they were training. A big thing here, and it's not just because it's a new weapon introduction, but it's going to have a huge impact in this next 2-part episode. The Gingaman obtained these 5 new weapons called the Kiba Blades. They were called the Trans Daggers in Lost Galaxies. They're Fang-like weapons. They, believe it or not, here we're actually given an explanation on where they came from, as opposed to Lost Galaxy, where, this monster has these mystical weapons that we no story behind them, and they're somehow compatible with the Rangers. No, here they're actually given an actual backstory that the monster of the day in this episode stole them from the original Gingaman 3,000 years ago. I'm sorry. I really wanted to bring that up because that, like, the way that these things just appear out of nowhere in Lost Galaxy just really bugged me. They start off as fangs, but then they can transform into 5 different modes. The Gingaman can all use them interchangeably. Like we have a dagger called the Kiba Cutter. Ryoma likes to use that one. A crossbow like Blaster, a Kiba Shot, Hayate's preferred mode. A double-bladed claw, the Kiba Claw, Goki's preferred mode. Double daggers, the Kiba Knives, Hikaru's preferred mode. And an energy bolt called the Kiba Arrow, Saya's preferred mode. And they can perform like a Starlight team finishing move. And at the end of this chapter, Moke reveals that they hold an additional hidden power that we don't know yet. What is that hidden power? Well, you're going to have to wait until the next 2-parter to figure that out. But what do we think about chapter 5, guys?
Go ahead. You go first.
I was going to say, I enjoyed this because we're taking things nice and slow, and we're going to really talk about that later, but we're not rushing anything. We're really building up the world. We're really building up the idea that, unlike other Sentai teams, this team doesn't have their full arsenal of weapons yet. This team is still learning how to be a team as the, as the Sentai team for this generation. But despite all the training, there's still a lot of stuff they don't know. They know next to nothing about the Star Beast and the powers or anything. And it's refreshing to have a team that's sitting there going, oh, we have more weapons in our arsenal we didn't know about. That's really cool. I wonder what these things do. Oh, there's other powers we don't know anything about. Let's go figure it out.
Yeah.
Versus immediately being given the power and being like, I got the power, and running off and doing a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really refreshing to see a Sentai take it slow and easy and build up.
Oh yeah, totally.
Definitely agree.
From an emotional standpoint, this is just a minor change that they make, but it still changes a lot of different things. So the Lost Galaxy episode kind of rips off this episode a little bit, but they make it make sense in the context of the Lost Galaxy plot, to their credit. But the one thing that I get really annoyed is that when they adapt the point where the Red Ranger gets captured by the monster because he won't let go of his sword, in Lost Galaxy, it's just kind of treated like Kai is all like, oh, I was too harsh on Leo for losing those weapons. That's why he wouldn't let go of his saber. Here, the reason why Ryoma refused to let his Seijuu go, it's because that was given to him by his brother. It's special to him. He didn't want to lose it. That was an honor given to him from his brother.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's the same thing in Lost Galaxy. And the Lost Galaxy episode is trying to convey the same message that Leo's trying to live up to be a Red Ranger that Mike could be. Why didn't you adapt that? That one line makes that whole thing goes through so much more emotional.
Because Lost Galaxy struggled to convey that brotherly relationship and the importance of what he lost. But Ryoma, like I said in the first episode recap, he's going to spend a long time, I think, living in the shadow of his brother, one, but two, also getting rid of that self-doubt and imposter syndrome of he doesn't belong there. Because, Patrick and I will probably get into this at the finale, I'm guessing, but Homeboy got some imposter syndrome built in here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say imposter syndrome is the right term for that, because that's more to do with don't feeling like you deserve the fame you have. That's essentially like a summarized version of what that is. But he's definitely definitely suffering from unworthiness, and he's doing everything he can to not only live up to these egregiously high expectations that he thinks Hyuga put on him by being reckless at times, because he was playing a pretty dangerous game here by like jumping and trying to fight them off without changing and waiting for the others to arrive and everything. But he did it because he felt like because he was given those powers as a sacrifice, he has to put in 3 arms when he only has 2. And this is and like you're right, this does become a recurring trend of his character going forward. And this is the first episode that really establishes that guilt and everything that he holds from losing Hyuga. And it's one of the things we were talking about this with Boom Boomger with, I forgot his name, but Boom Red.
Taya,
yeah. Where he was a very abnormal Red, where he didn't fall into one of the 2 usual stereotypes. Hyuga is another one of those Reds, and he stands out so much amongst the crowd because of that.
Yeah. And
Ryoma's a really awesome Red.
Oh, and by the way, Riz, this is why, for the record, you kept mispronouncing.
I know.
This is why I didn't want you calling him Ryoma, because this is a great Red Ranger. I don't want you soiling his name like that.
Look, Ryura is a piece of garbage. Ryoma is awesome.
That part.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anthony with the
because of the better myself.
Instant double down. Yes.
And also,
well, he's not pissing me off as much as he did when we was watching the show. But now I'm kind of like I mellowed out a little bit.
Yeah, and I know I'm gonna try not to compare Lost Galaxy to this too much, but here's the thing: if Lost Galaxy does like blatantly copy an element from Gingaman but doesn't do it well, then I do think I kind of reserve the right to I have the right to call them
definitely.
out on that.
It's gonna happen a lot. It's gonna happen a lot.
That's why
so, yeah.
honestly, this is why I don't think we should do what we did with Time Force and Time
We
Ranger
can't.
with this
That's
season in
gonna be a
Lost Galaxy because
bloodbath, dude.
It would be a massacre. It's a massacre.
that's
Yeah.
exactly why I said we shouldn't do that.
The only thing that I might give Lost Galaxy over Gingaman at this stage is the opening song.
Yeah.
And that's even debatable.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I think I like the Lost Galaxy opening song more, but that's me right now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I might change my opinion by the end of all this, but for right now, I think it's better.
Yeah.
Anthony, you want to add
I do
anything
want to
on
call.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like this monster of the week a lot.
Yeah.
He's the weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the weapons collector aspect. And also, he wasn't there last
I
time.
love yeah. I just love the fact that he literally could have already got that new sword that they needed for like the survived Titanics, and he's just like, I don't want to do that. I collect I like collecting these things. Like, no, as a collector myself, I totally agree with him on that. I'm like, no, you're not using my collection. No.
Yeah. What do we want to give Chapter 5 out of 10?
9.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 9 too.
I'll give it a 9.
All right, cool. Now we're moving on to a 2-part episode. We'll talk about both the episodes individually. And spoiler alert, this is another episode that Lost Galaxy absolutely botched, which I will be going on a rant over a little bit later, but we'll save that until we finish the next episode.
Do it. Do it.
So
I wish I had Nathan Martland's rant master button.
But yeah, we have Chapter 6, the Star Beast Crisis. So pretty much the Gingaman, they're trying to figure out what the hidden power of the Kiba Blades are, and they ask the Star Beasts, but the Star Beasts refuse to tell them because they think the power is too dangerous for the Gingaman to use. We actually learned that the Star Beasts come from another planet, from planets far away to help the Earth, to protect it. And Yuta, who's with the Gingaman while they're, out with the Seijuu, he actually, develops like a close friendship with them because, he feels sorry for how lonely they must be being by themselves. The latest of Sam Bash's monsters, he unleashes a poison gas on Earth. He's trying to turn it into he's trying to turn Earth into a contaminated planet like Zahab's planet so that it'll awaken Titanics. And Yuta and the Gingaman get poisoned. And with everything looking lost, the Star Beasts, they show up and they max out their powers to counteract the poison. The Gingaman plead them not to, but they do. And the Star Beast, they stop the poison, but because they maxed out their power, they get turned to stone as a result. So the Seijuu are dead, and the Gingaman mourn the death of the Seijuu with Yuta as the episode ends. What do we think about this one, guys?
This has some incredible moments.
Yes.
One, this is probably one of the more underrated moments in the episode in our group, but I think the entire Yuta connection with the Star Beast is pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. Because unlike another season that we're not going to talk about too much more, where they had kids, that didn't do anything ever. We actually have a kid who's been around for a couple episodes in a row, which is a big shocker, first of all, because you don't normally see that. And then second, he's useful in 4 out of the 6 episodes he's in. And he's extremely useful here because he builds a connection to the Star Beast. He gets the little orb thingy, I think it's a star or something. And he's just awesome as a character. He's really, worthy of being in the season. He's not like a throwaway thing that's just there for plot convenience or to sell toys or something. He's there to tell the story.
Yeah,
And we
and
also
they
get to
could have
see
made him easily an annoying character because in the first episode we didn't really bring this up that much, but he was very skeptical. What his dad is like this very wide-eyed, like childlike person who believes in all this stuff, and he's all like, "Dad, did you forget to take your medicine again today?" But now that he's actually seen all this stuff, like he's a bit more friendly. Like he could have just been like this snobby person who just doesn't like the Gingaman, but no, they're making him to be not a like overly like childish kid, but just a kid and a likable kid at that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I didn't catch the first time because I didn't really make a big deal of it at the time. The Star Beasts have legit personality amongst them.
Yeah.
Like, I love that thing where
Yeah.
Yuta was like running around like an airplane, and it cut to the Ginga Beast, and Gingarilla was doing the airplane thing himself. You know,
Yeah.
it's just, like these, they're just bros. Like, I can't hate. Like, they wake up, like he's like, "Am I a friend?" And then Ginga Leon's like, "Here's a stone from my planet as like a sign of our friendship," and like. How cool is this? Like, they're usually just robots, or like even the Guardian Beast from Zoo Ranger, which we're living, had nothing about them.
And same thing with the power animals.
The only one that had a personality was Dragon Caesar. He was the only one that had personality.
Dragon Caesar was the only one that had a personality until Geki told him to stop that and ruin the fun.
Right.
Same problem with the power animals in Gao Ranger. The power animals are living, but they don't have much of a personality.
Yeah, but like. They're treated as like friends and family to the rest of the Gingaman and even to Yuta and stuff, and I just love that dynamic. It's so good.
Like if you want an idea of like how to do sentient mechs correctly, this is Exhibit A, and then fast forward like 11 years later, Go Andra will be another exhibit of how to do that.
Oh gosh. Oh, they're all personality. I'm looking at you, Speedor.
Yeah, I know. I mean, admittedly, the Seijuu. Well, okay, in the case of the engines and Go Andra, it's more of a sillier Sentai. But this is how you do the sentient mechs in a in a Sentai that's clearly trying to take itself seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wait, aren't you forgetting? Well, it's a mix between being serious and also being kind of goofy at times.
Yeah. The Abba Ranger are pretty good. Actually, come to think of it, I mean, I haven't seen Rio Soldier yet, but with like all of the dinosaur mechs always being living, like the Guardian Beasts were living, the Juden Ryu were living. Abba Ranger is the only one that actually made that actually work really well. So, I'll add Abba Ranger to that. Like, Gingaman is a perfect example of how to do this when you're trying to take yourself seriously. Go Andra is when you're trying to do it and you just want to be stupid and embrace how stupid your premise is. And Abba Ranger is where you don't want to do one or the other, just kind of do a mix of both, I guess. Like, now, the scene where like they max out their power and they turn to stone, I want to talk about that, but here's the thing. I need to wait until the next episode because the way that Lost Galaxy botches this moment, like, but I'm going to wait until the next episode because I've never been so like that. That's one of the things that legitimately makes me want to like go back to my blog and maybe take a few points off of my Lost Galaxy grade.
I'm lowering your grade in hindsight.
Yeah.
Remind us, Nathan, what did you give it?
I gave it like an 8.1 or something.
Oh god, that
I
is
knocked it down
high.
to a 7.
That is way too high for Lost Galaxy.
What do we want to give? But yeah, we should probably try to get to the meat of like this big story. What do we want to give chapter 6 out of 10?
9.
9 for sure.
9.
Okay, that allows us to move on to chapter 7, Time of Revival. So at the beginning, when the Gingamen are battling two of the monsters for this episode from the previous episode, and his brother is also there. So we got a stag beetle and a rhinoceros beetle monster. They're attempting to kill the star beasts, who are now vulnerable because they're stoned. And when Ryuma uses his Kiba blade, it absorbs energy from the crystal that Yuta was given, and this leads us to discover, Moke discovers that the crystal since it's a miniaturized version of Ginga Leon's home star, basically the Kiba blades have the power to absorb energy from the Star Beast stars to create even more power. But the problem is that when Ryoma did use this power, it almost killed him, so it could be too much. But the Gingaman, they ignore what Moke has to say, and they decide, no, we're going to do it anyway. Sandbash tries to absorb the energy to revive Titanics, but Yuta stops them by throwing this crystal at the machine, and it gets destroyed. And the Gingaman, they're successful in reviving the Star Beasts with the Kiba blades. And through the new power with the Kiba blades, they transform into an armored robot form called their Silver forms. These were called the Galactazords in Lost Galaxy. And through these forms, the Gingaman are able to combine their Seijuu to form their main mech, Gingayo. Now, briefly, okay, I'll let Riz and Patrick talk about what they think about this mech debut after, but first, let's briefly pause. Without talking about the debut here, what do we think of the design of Gingayo?
He knows that we're come on, get to the end. I want to talk about this. I actually really like how he looks, because having Gingalkin, can I just say how fun that is to say, Gingalkin? Having him on the back, giving him like big bird wings and stuff has always made him look cool. The horns and the bird wings, I love how this thing looks.
Yeah, it's a really awesome mech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of how like the Gingaman mechs, like we don't get any combination mechs, but if I look at these mechs just from like an individual standpoint, yeah, this looks pretty cool. Like I honestly, go ahead.
I was gonna say we don't need combination mechs all the time to like do something different. I think
I know
a simple mech design like this is better than 20 million different things.
Yeah, you're right.
Combined together. Looking at you, Gao Ranger, Wild Force, and everything that comes after.
And Gao? What's that thing's name? Gao King? Gao King in like his 20 forms. His 20 forms.
Who knows, man? I don't know.
You want to add anything about Gingayo / Galaxy Megazord, Anthony?
It looks cool. That's it.
Okay, cool. I know that Riz and Patrick really want me to get to the end of this so that they can talk about this.
You think?
So, yeah, Gingayo, the Gingaman, they defeat both monsters, and then they happily reunite with Yuta. This is another episode where one of the monsters only appeared in Lost Galaxy in stock footage, the blue beetle monster in this episode. So he appeared in a flashback where he was one of the monsters attacking Magna Defender's homeworld in the Sunflower Search. And then just like with Dread Redder, they used stock footage of him in the Chameleac Warrior. And we also saw him as one of the assorted monsters seen attending the auction and protect the Quasar Saber. Apparently the original draft was going to be a more direct adaptation. Like they were going to have him fighting alongside his brother, but apparently this guy's suit was also remodified into another Monster of the Day suit, so they couldn't film any original footage of him, so they basically cut him out. Okay. All right, I'm going to save my rant for later since I just spoke a lot. Okay, Riz and Patrick, you guys can fight over who you want to talk about.
No,
okay, Patrick.
Well, first let me get
I'm
my
going to say one thing.
Okay, now I'm good.
Okay, Patrick, I'm going first. You can't stop me.
Oh, come on. I've been sitting on this episode for a year. Okay,
Hang on
over a year.
Hold up. You will have your chance. All I want to say is, every Sentai writer in all of history, including Kobayashi, who wrote this thing, this is how you do a Sentai. Yeah. Patrick, you can have the rest of the rant.
Oh, okay. I was expecting a lot more out of you, but
no. I was going to go into more, but I'm letting you have the first go.
Okay. So let's rewind about a year when we talked about the first episode of King Oger, and I went on this huge rant, probably unnecessarily long rant, honestly, in hindsight, about how I didn't like how they handled King Oger, the mech, not the season. I hate that they were named the same thing now that I think about it. Kind of weird. And it's because of this episode right here. They introduced the Star Beasts about 4 episodes beforehand. They let them establish that they can fight on their own, establish they had personalities, let them have a shining moment of free will where they sacrifice themselves to purify the earth of poison, all this stuff. And with them retrieving the Kiba blades, giving Yuta that stone, Mokfik putting 2 and 2 together, and them making the risk of reviving them pay off. For us to have that shot of Gingayo standing there with Yuta looking up at him from his feet with that amazing theme of his playing made me realize the first time I was watching this season, maybe these seasons can do more with their main mechs introductions than what I've seen before. Because outside of maybe Muteki Shogun in Kaku Ranger, I don't think any season has even attempted to introduce their main mech with this level of respect. He didn't feel like he was introduced for the sake of being a toy to put on the shelves. This was a monumental milestone in the early plot of this season. Yeah. And when I was watching this the first time, I couldn't believe how invested I was in this thing showing up. Because I usually just thought it as, it was just status quo to introduce this thing as early as possible. But they made this thing have impact. So that shot of Gingayo standing there with Yuta looking up, at his feet like that shot has been stapled to my brain for 3 years after seeing this, because I'm like, this is how you introduce your main mech. And watching it the second time through, I'm like, I'm sorry, every single Sentai is going to get compared to this and they're all going to lose. Yeah. And seeing how you've seen all but maybe like 5 Sentai, Nate, is this still the best main mech introduction?
Honestly, yeah. I'm kind of half tempted to say that, yeah.
And it's made Gingayo memorable to me.
I'm going to have to see the Muteki Shogun debut again, but
it's not as good as this, but that's the only other one that I can really think of. Like, at least Daijujin tried, but how they handled it was terrible. But like everything else. But
well, this is just another example of how this thing is doing what Zyuranger should have been doing.
Exactly. It's just like Daijujin, except how it's handled infinitely better. So, on principle, for the fact that this episode established a core way of how I judge early episodes in Sentai, this is a 10. This is as 10 of a 10 as you can get from me.
And honestly, listening to what you have to say just makes me hate how Lost Galaxy handled this better, where it's like,
the Galaxy Megazord was shoehorned in like it was not important at all.
No, the way that Lost Galaxy handles this is like, okay, the monster's spreading the gas all over the place, and then the Galactabeasts show up, and then everybody's all like, "Oh, cool! The Galactabeasts, they're sucking up the gas," and it's as opposed to Gingaman, where they're like, "No, don't do it! You could die." While in Lost Galaxy's case, it's like, "Oh, cool! They're doing this," and then they turn to stone, and it's like, "Oh no, they turned to stone," and then they immediately cut to the footage of the part 2 where the Galaxy Rangers are like, "Hey, since the Sentai footage requires us to do this, let's see if the trans daggers will work." Oh, look, they did work. Let's form the Megazord now.
Yeah, because here it was a gamble. It was a gamble. It was a gamble and a team effort, because even Yuta played a role in this. Like, this is just S-tier writing, man. You can't get much better than this.
It's like I was saying. Every Sentai writer needs to look at Gingaman's first 7 episodes.
Yes.
For a template for how to write stuff. Because like you said, and like I said earlier, Patrick, this kid had all the potential to be the most annoying little shit in the world. But he actually turned out to be very important to the plot. Immensely important to the
He beat all the allegations.
Yeah, he beat all the allegations.
If it wasn't for him, they probably wouldn't have a mech right now.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
It's crazy to think about that. And also, just the writing, the amount of detail, the amount of respect that this mech got. Like, I want more seasons where you don't immediately go from here are your 5 Zords to oh, here's how you combine into like the big mech. Let them have a little time to kind of do stuff on their own.
Let them marinate.
Let them cook. Like, we had a little bit of cooking with Zero Ranger Mighty Morphin, with the Zords doing their own thing individually for a little bit. You had it a little bit with, like, a handful of other seasons.
Yeah, Go Busters waits a little bit until they debut Go Busters.
Go Busters waited a little bit.
Yeah.
You see a little bit of Go Kaiser doing it, like where the mechs can do stuff on their own, but not a lot. But this one, oh my god, like you can...
Yeah.
It's almost like by episode 6, I'm like, okay, we're 6 episodes in and we haven't gotten a mech yet. What's going on here?
Honestly, my only
weird.
complaint is that so we saw Ginga Leon defeat monsters by itself multiple times. If I remember correctly, I think Gingalkin and Gingavrik defeated a monster together in that episode revolving around Hayate and Hikaru. I kind of wish that Gingarilla and Gingat also had a moment to shine briefly, but minor nitpick. I mean, that's
no, I agree with that.
Yeah, but
yeah.
And also, the other thing I want to say here is that wasn't a 2-part beginning, Nate. That's a 7-part opening.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I know that the wiki says these are all like there's like 3 mini arcs in this, but no, this was 1 to 7 was one arc.
Yeah, that's fair.
And this is one heck of a payoff.
No, it's a story. It's not an arc.
Yeah, exactly. It's a story.
And I especially love how, they have it take down 2 monsters in its debut battle because it has 2 different finishers. It can kill you with the sword or kill it with like its crossbow weapon. Just from a meta perspective, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm going to agree with Patrick. Like, not just for the epic debut, but...
And Riz, damn it.
Yeah.
I gave my word to Patrick. I want retribution now. And Fred, God dang it.
But... Yeah,
I stay quiet out of respect for Patrick.
Oh boy!
Give me recognition, Nate. I will not talk until you do.
Yeah, all right. I'm giving you your recognition.
Oh man!
There we go.
But yeah, not just from the epic debut of Gingayo, but just from the emotion that they put behind it before it debuts. Yeah, this episode is a 10. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. And honestly, like, these 7 episodes together, like, probably some of the best writing I've seen in early Sentai, like, episodes as a whole. The only thing that comes close to my mind in terms of story writing is probably King Ozer. Nothing else has anything that intricately written.
Yeah.
And honestly, because I thought King Oger started off sloppy, I think these first 7 are better.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's why I was kind of like...
Yeah.
That's why I was trying to be careful with not saying that King Ozer had a better opening than this, because I don't know if I want to say that necessarily.
I don't think it did. It took King Oger about like 15 episodes to really get going good.
Yeah.
It took it about 4 or 5 for me.
Yeah, same here.
Like, after the first 4 episodes of King Ozer, I was pretty sold on this being a really good story-driven Sentai.
Facts.
But definitely by episode 15, like you said, it was really cooking.
Yeah.
But it started off at episode 4 like really strong. But Gingaman, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what happens after this in terms of like the storytelling, because the next couple episodes are kind of more fillery and not really as important.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens when we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10 out of 10.
Yep.
We all give it 10 out of 10. We're moving on to episode 8 now.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. All right, we have, as Riz said, the next 3 episodes are filler episodes, so we can get through this pretty quick. So we have Chapter 8, Love's Culinary. This is a Hikaru-centric filler episode where Hikaru befriends a chef. She reminds him of his mother, and she also gets targeted by Sam Bash's latest monster. We get a little bit of backstory for Hikaru here. We find out that he lost his mother at a very young age. That's the only real relevant thing about this episode. What do we think about this one, guys?
I loved it. Like, honestly, like I said earlier, I like Hikaru a lot as a character, and having another episode early on to kind of establish more of his character, but not be something where he's being reckless or aloof, but giving him some real meat. That says a lot about the writing of Hikaru, is that he's not just this one-dimensional character with, reckless tendencies and don't give a crap attitude. He's actually lost a lot, and he's trying mentally to recover from it. And
which might explain why he can be a little hot-headed and childish at times.
Exactly.
Because he never had a mother to teach him what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, this makes Hikaru a really awesome character.
But I also love some of the comedic. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, I was about to say it has a very simple message and a very simple story, and it tells it easy to understand. That's all there is to it. That's all it needed to be.
Yeah.
So,
and I love some of the comedic stuff in here. First of all, I love the monsters plot of the day, where it's all like, I'm going to try to revive Great Titanics by making him something nice to eat and try to revive him with the smell of food. Like, that's like a Boom Boomger level type of stupid plot.
I mean, I will give the Balaban army one thing. They do try everything. At least once in the season to make him come back.
We're desperate.
That's pretty much what it comes off as sometimes.
There's also this scene where the Gingaman are trying to cheer Hikaru up, knowing that he's lost his father. Like, Saya and Goki both say, like, I think it has something to do with them relating to, like, oh, he sees his mother in this woman, and it's like, Hikaru, like, and, Saya and Goki both say, like, some nice things to him, like, hey, Hikaru, we got your back. And then Hayate walks up to say something to him, but then he tries to hold back a laugh and then just walks away. Like, yeah, that was awesome.
I busted out laughing when I saw that. Because he reminds me of something I would do.
Yeah. What do you think of this one, Anthony?
I thought it was sweet. I just love the relationship between him and the chef. What was I about to say? Yeah, the whole premise of them just trying to find different stuff to revive Titanics is just hilarious to me. It's just like they're just throwing everything out the door, like at the dart. Like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. No, let's do this.
I mean, Budo and Iris's plans are a bit more, like, I want to say intelligent, as opposed to, like, Sambash, who's just doing a bunch of, like, stupid, like, oh my god, I got so much pressure, I gotta try something, like, well, can I do this or can I do that? But, I mean, it makes for some funny plots.
Well, he's not the smartest of the group, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically just a brute. So...
Yeah, which kind of...
A brute hothead.
Yeah. Shoot first, ask questions later. I wouldn't expect smart, well-thought-out plans from him.
Kind of funny how he was adapted into probably one of the best generals in Power Rangers, Villamax, but...
Yeah.
But then again, this guy is probably more comparable to...
Complete opposites.
But if we're talking about, like, from the character perspective, this guy is more comparable to Furio than Villamax. So, even though his suit was technically used...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
By the way, for those who don't... who are wondering, like, if Furio isn't in Gingaman, like, where did he come from? His suit was actually the monster form of Dr. Heinler from Mega Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, what do we want to give Chapter 8 out of 10, guys?
I give it an 8.
I'll give it a 9.
I'll give it an 8.
I'm going to do 8 too. All right,
fine. I see how it is. Y'all don't like Hikaru as much as I do.
Hey, I'm starting to warm up to Hikaru a little bit more, so he should probably just feel happy that I don't hate him like I did when I originally watched it.
Exactly.
So, but anyway, we get a Saya-centric filler episode next, Chapter 9, Secret Kitten. Basically, in this episode, a meteor crashes to Earth, and it unleashes this energy that seals Gingat's power and shrinks her down into a tiny little cat. And she gets adopted by a lonely girl, and Saya spends most of the episode trying to convince her to return her friend. This is the episode where the monster of the day, the suit was modified from Dreadredder, that episode from Chapter 4, the Mantis monster, Mandiger. His suit is the modified version from Chapter 4. What do we think of Chapter 9, guys? And yeah, I know Riz probably wants to go first.
I was going to say, this is a pretty adorable episode with Saya starting off with wanting to make a cake for her Ginkat. And then it got a little weird when she got struck by the meteor. I don't understand why she got struck, but the others didn't.
I'm guessing she was the one that was close to it.
Maybe, but I don't know. It was kind of
because you got to remember we didn't see any of the other why am I blanking on their names?
The Seijuu.
The Seijuu, yeah, the Seijus. We didn't see any of them near her when she got hit with the meteor.
Yeah.
So,
but other than that, it was a good episode. I mean, nothing super deep, but it does give good Saya vibes. And again, Kotaha, sorry, but Saya must be protected at all costs now.
And the mini version of Gingat is kind of adorable in a weird way.
Yeah. But those are my thoughts. I'd probably give this an 8.
Yeah, I feel like the not only that, but I feel like the child of the day, because again, okay, I really hate to keep making some comparisons with Ranger here, but I mean, here we are. We have a child of the day for this episode, and she's not annoying, and there's actually a little bit of emotion, and she also doesn't steal the spotlight because we let Saya have her moments and get some development. Well, not development, but have a moment to shine with this kid without letting the kid steal the focus.
Yeah. No, like, this kid was there to help the plot. He wasn't there to steal the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'll agree with Riz. I'll give this an 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's harmless. Yeah. It's a harmless episode. I'll give it an 8.
All right, so episode 10?
Anthony?
I'll give it an 8.
Cool. All right, we got our last chapter here, chapter 10, The Wind's Flute. This is not a filler episode because we get a bit more backstory, so we could call this a character episode for Hayate, where the latest ball bond scheme, has to be countered with Hayate's wind flute, but Hayate is kind of reluctant to do it because there's painful memories surrounding it. What are those painful memories? Well, we find out here that Hayate had a fiancée in the Ginga Forest. Her name is Miharu. And apparently they were actually scheduled to be married on the day that this episode takes place. Ouch. And, and the reason why is because they connected over playing the flute. Another big thing is that in this episode, Shalinda, she attempts to stop Hayate from playing his flute to foil the monster's plan, and they get in a one-on-one duel where Hayate ultimately wins and cuts her arm really bad, and Shalinda gets really angry and she vows revenge, which results in them having not much of a spoiler here. They're going to have a rivalry for the rest of the series. Not that it really matters since Shalinda's not really really that deep of a villain, but it's something to note. So what do we think about chapter 10, guys?
This episode hurt to watch because Hayate's such a cool, calm, down-to-earth guy, and seeing him feel bad that he lost his fiance and stuff. But this episode does something I do like Gingaman does, and it takes advantage of their element powers, how he uses the wind to disperse the sound of his flute so they couldn't find him with such a cool touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that Lost Galaxy just completely flubbed on, but they use their elemental powers strategically throughout Gingaman. And this is one of those instances where it's like, oh, that's just creative.
And okay, I really wish that I didn't have to keep doing this, but I'm going to. This is another thing that G Ranger could have done, because like, we get more emotion behind, like, them losing the Ginga Force, because here's Hayate. We're given a specific thing on like something that he had to leave behind in order to become a Ginga Man, where he had this woman that he loved, and the flashbacks showed that they genuinely were in love. Very touching flashbacks, and he had to leave her to be a Ginga Man. Like, could we have gotten an episode of Geo Ranger where, I don't know, maybe Goshi is revealed to like have someone that he was going to get married to, or maybe like Don had more of a family or something like that? Could we have gotten something? Ginga Man has given us something, and I'm sorry, I really hate to bring up all these Geo Ranger comparisons, but half the time I'm watching this now, like after having watched Geo Ranger recently, I'm just realizing like this is stuff that Geo Ranger should have done, and it kind of makes me hate that Sentai even more. Now I'm not going to go back and change my grade on my blog there, because I already gave Geo Ranger an F. So I mean, it's not like I'm going to give it a lower F, but still, like,
you could give it an F minus.
Yeah, totally. but I also love how the emotion behind it, like Hayate is the perfect character for them to do this thing with, since he's the most serious, and he's the one who says, no, everything that we're doing, like, this is like, we have to do this. But here he is being the most like hesitant, because he has some emotion behind this personal thing. And I don't know, it's kind of like in the same way that like Ryunosuke was the perfect character to like question the dynamic with like to question the heritage of the samurai thing in that one episode of Shinkenger.
Mm-hmm.
Riz, what did you think of this?
No, I liked the episode a lot. It really made me go from Hayate is a really boring character to, oh wow, Hayate has a lot of character depth that I didn't know about. Because up until episode 9, I was like, man, my my ranking is gonna have Hayate at the bottom, I think, because he hadn't really done much, and then all of a sudden, I'm like,
I'm gonna give it a 9.
No, he's not at the bottom.
Yeah, 9 here.
I'm gonna give it a 9 as well.
Yeah, I think.
Did you want to add anything, Anthony?
I like this episode a lot. Probably an 8.5 for me.
I just like the fact that we get a little bit more with Hayate.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, it's gotta suck that the reason why you didn't get married is because Baldwin had to just screw your day up.
Yeah.
That's so gut wrenching. But
it's like, I was supposed to get. No, let me stop. I don't want. That's not PG, so I can't say.
Couldn't you wait until next Tuesday to attack the game?
Right?
Yeah. But
I was booking my honeymoon by now.
But yeah, that wraps up the episode briefings. We'll go into the analysis segment. We don't have to talk about the villains because they're kind of boring. Because honestly, the only thing I can note about the villains that I kind of like is that I like how the different armies all have like a different consistent theme. And in the case of Sam Bash's army, they're all insect monsters. And because they got like a biker gang thing going on, most of them have leather jackets as part of their design. And then like with Budo's army, like we saw one of his monsters, like they're all sea creatures and they're samurai themed or warriors and so on and so forth. That's a cool aesthetic theme, but that's not enough for me to like say, oh, these are some of the greatest Sentai villains ever. Like aesthetics are not enough.
No.
But yeah, so to kind of wrap this up, let's each talk about our the Rangers and like give our opening rankings. And Riz, you haven't seen Gingaman before, so how about you go first?
Yeah, so I've been struggling with the ranking here a lot because they're all pretty awesome. And like I mentioned earlier, Hayate was at the bottom for me in the beginning, but he shot up to like somewhere top there. But starting from the top, honestly, this might be a little obvious or boring, but Ryoma, with his constant story with his brother and the guilt, that's top. That's the top one for me. Hikaru, for my own selfish personal reasons, I just like the character a lot more than anyone else did, I think. Um, Hayate, it would be
Yeah, that's
next
fair.
because
Yeah, Goki didn't get
Hayate
much time to
just
shine in these
broke
first
me
10.
in episode 10.
Understandable.
And Saya is so adorable. You can't put
You
her
want to
any
go next,
lower.
Patrick?
And Goki, I'm sorry, but I don't know
Yeah,
you yet.
I'll go next. I'm going to try to judge these based off of how
Yeah.
we've seen them up to this point instead of what I know from them
Yeah.
from my first watch through, just to be fair.
That's going to be difficult.
Yeah, because Goki's probably like number 2 if that's the case. But I'll be fair to them. Ryoma's probably number 1 because there's just so much depth and intrigue with his character. It's hard to put him any lower than this. Hayate, just because I love the episodes that give him a lot more focus time. I just enjoy his character too much. I'm still going to put Goki down here because I'm not going to completely ignore what I know about him going forward. I'm actually going to put Hikaru here and then Sei at the bottom because I don't know. Sei just kind of felt like she had her moments, but at the same time, she still felt very background character to me at this point. So, but yeah, like Riz said, there isn't a bad character.
Yeah. Anthony, you want to go next?
Ryoma's first, Goki second, Hayate third, Saya fourth, and Hikaru fifth.
Okay, cool.
And like I said, I have nothing. Like I don't hate. Like I said, I don't hate Hikaru as much as I did when I first watched the show. Mind you, I had not watched Gingaman in almost 2-3 years. At that point, I remember it freshly in my mind, but I haven't seen it in a while. This is like my rewatching. This is my first rewatch. So,
I mean, to put it in context, the first time I watched Gingaman, I think I was talking with you guys, but that was like the first year that I actually met you guys back in the day. So that was like 10 years ago. So it's been a long time since I've seen this the first time. But yeah, for my rankings, without trying to kind of going the Patrick route of like not taking too much of what I know with these people already in my mind, I would probably say Ryoma first, just because, I mean, probably some of the best development we've got from a Red early on that I've ever seen in Sentai, which that should be a lot coming from me, given what I've seen. I'm gonna put Hayate next, just because this last episode makes him great, and I might feel half tempted if he ends up being a bit better than I remember. He might be that one other S tier green that next to Chiaki, but we'll see how that goes. Saya next, just because I agree with Riz. Saya is a great character, gives off good vibes. I prefer Kotohan over her, but she's still a close second. I'm gonna put I'm gonna put Goki after Saya, just because I can't entirely ignore Goki, because even in these episodes he hasn't done much, but he's still just a lovable doofus in some of these episodes, although you should wait till the next batch. And finally with Hikaru, I mean, I feel bad putting Hikaru at the end, because I'm kind of realized that my hatred for him might have been overblown before, but again, it's not that he's a bad character so much as he's just the lowest in a cast of really good Rangers. And that's it. So what do we want to say for our closing thoughts before we wrap this up, guys? And especially coming from you, Riz, since you've never seen this before.
Yeah.
So this, Nate, is what I wanted to feel when I was watching Time Ranger's first 10 episodes. This excitement, this hype, this feeling of, oh, this is a really good season. When I got done with Time Ranger's first batch, I was really lukewarm and not really feeling it. And so I was starting to wonder, I mean, the season wasn't that great, and then you'll start hyping this, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait and judge it, because the last time I took your word for something that was great, two times I've been burned. And, like, you know, it not being as good as I was hoping it would be. Looking at you, Geki, and a little bit of Time Ranger. Time Ranger is a great season, but it's still not, like, top tier best season out there to me. This is what I was kind of hoping to feel. Like, that just excitement and that love for a season, because
I don't hate the song. What's wrong with the song?
only
Like,
one
too
complaint
sappy.
about the season.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not
two
a fan of it.
complaints. The first complaint is that
I'm not
ending
like country
song is
either, but
garbage.
like this didn't feel
Garbage.
country to me. So
It's too country. I don't like country.
Mm-hmm.
It feels country to me. My other complaint we already talked about with the threat factor after episode 1 being kind of odd. But that's such a small nitpick in a grand scheme that it doesn't even matter. So no, this
so
season's
far,
doing things
because
that
this
I
is
didn't
my
expect,
second watch of the season,
and I'm pretty hyped for it.
It was probably my
Same.
second or third favorite Sentai before I joined you guys to like start rewatching Shinkenger and all this stuff. And it's better than I remember it being the first time, and I loved it the first time. So
yeah,
because I'm catching stuff that I didn't catch the first time, and it's just amplifying everything. So I'm really excited to see if the rest of it holds up as good as I remember it, but I'm thinking it will, because this season's got a lot of stuff going on in it, and it's all good stuff. So
yeah,
I'm happy to be talking about this season. I really am.
agreed.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like, I mean, I remember like when I originally watched Jew Ranger, and I was kind of suckered in by a lot of like the fantasy elements and the aesthetics. And, you know, then I watched it again and realized its problems. But like, and I'll admit, Gingaman probably suckered me in with some of the fantasy and like classical element stuff like that. But unlike Jew Ranger, there's a lot of substance there. So I don't know. Like, I already put this in my top 5 favorite Sentais, but I might, if we continue with like this momentum, it might go up in the top 5, which the top 5 is already a pretty big honor. But
yeah.
But yeah, that wraps up this podcast. If you enjoyed listening to the Toku Secrets podcast, please check us out at animesecrets.org and follow us on all our social media pages such as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also feel free to check out our other podcasts, including Anime Declassified and the Jedi Squadron. You can also leave us any feedback you'd like to offer us directly on our website. If you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, we thank you so much, and please leave us a rating out of 5 stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed, and leave any comments down below, as we love to take the time to read comments left on our channel and give our fans, shout-outs. If you have any seasons of Super Sentai, Power Rangers, or other tokusatsu shows that you'd like for us to check out, please don't hesitate to say so in your feedback. With all that said, we thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our podcast, and we will see you next time as we continue our never-ending journey through the world of tokusatsu. But until that time, you all stay safe, we love you, and may the power protect you.